Tom Savini and Mr. Taso Stavrakis. Tom, what came first on the movie? You were hired to do makeup, you then ended up doing stunts, and then you became an actor on the film. Is that the order it came in, and how did it happen that way?
Yeah, that's how it happened. I was doing the effects on the film. I was hired to do that.
Yeah.
We never got paid for anything more than that.
Right.
Did you ever get paid anything?
You gave me something out of your pocket.
Of course. They hadn't gotten their act together to hire a stuntman. And I said, I can do that. I can go over the balcony, I can get hit by a truck. And that's every day was like, I used to carry a sleeping bag around and sleep wherever I could, under the escalators or near an elevator. And they would keep waking me up. Tom, it's time to make up so-and-so. Tom, it's time to get hit by a truck. Or play the part of Blades. We just decided we wanted to be in the movie, so I became Blades. He became Sledge because he carried a sledgehammer, and I had blades all over me. So, and George wanted to see more and more of that because the bikers, it was a real bike gang. They're not actors, and couldn't carry a line, So George let us do it, And again, he wanted to see.
Did you go and meet George, or did you know George before?
Before Dawn of the Dead?
Yeah.
Martin.
Yeah.
Martin was before. Was
Yeah.
before Dawn.
Yeah.
I think, didn't you audition for Night when you were a kid before the army?
For Night of the Living Dead? Yeah, I was going to do the effects on the original Night of the Living Dead, but I had enlisted in the Army and on the hold program, which means there's 140 days within which they can call you. And they called me just before George started Night of the Living Dead. So I was in Vietnam when George made Night of the Living Dead.
At what point on Dawn of the Dead did you realise that you needed help, that you needed Taso to come on and assist you?
I didn't. He just showed up and forced his way in.
We were in school, and he said, I'm going to go do this, you want to come?
Yeah, well, we were
Right from the beginning.
in school, we were inseparable. If you saw him, you said, where's Tom? If you saw me, you said, where's Taso? We were always together. Fencing in the hallway, falling off balconies or down steps. I went to his house once, and I just, as a joke, I fell down the steps, and his mother screamed, Taso, I can't take two of you. But we were always doing stuff like that. So,
I was pretty good in his class, in the makeup class, and he said, come on, we're going to go do this movie.
Whenever there was something physical, like when we did dance class or movement class, we were stretching partners. He would push my back, against the wall, and I would do him. So we were always doing stuff together in college. And I took a leave of absence to do Dawn of the Dead, So you were going to school in the daytime and then coming to do Dawn at night. Wow.
It was around Christmas. We had a break.
Ah.
It was winter time. I remember losing your yellow Volkswagen Rabbit in the snow.
You lost it?
You did.
Oh.
Remember, they snow plowed it under them.
That's right.
We came out at 9 in the morning after shooting and couldn't find the car, and it snowed, and they came around and plowed and buried it.
Well, the blonde zombie,
That's a great story.
Jeannie Jeffries, the blonde zombie who gets her face blown off. Well, she was my girlfriend at the time. And one night it snowed so bad, and the snow was up to our knees. We decided to stay in the room, the huge room, where we made up the zombies. It was called the community room. So we stayed in the closet, The next day, I don't know, we woke up late, noon. We walked out of that room into a board of trustees meeting.
For the mall.
Everybody in suits. And I heard about it that night from George. What were you doing in the closet with Jeannie? That night, okay. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Was it natural for crew members to double up as zombies or as extras?
Oh,
a lot of them did
a
it.
lot of the zombies are crew.
Yeah. You're a zombie many times in the film. You're also a member of the biker gang. Was that down to cash? Was that down to budget? Or just availability of people being on the spot?
Well, we wanted to do it, but I'm sure it was so easy. George had an idea for a specific zombie. It was easy to grab, somebody from catering or the cameraman or somebody who was there anyway.
They all wanted to be zombies. When I did the machete hit, we walked around the set, and look for somebody whose head would fit the machete. And it was only Lee's. That's how it became the machete zombie.
And people, I mean, Len said in an interview earlier today that he was watching other people playing zombies, and he was thinking that time was running out. Yeah, yeah. And he said to George, "Can I be a zombie?" And he said, "Sure." And he ended up being a machete zombie.
Well, my memory was that we just walked around the set and looked at people on the crew, and whoever fit the machete was, But I'm sure he did that. I'm sure he told George he wanted to be a zombie. And George might have even said, "Why don't you try Lenny or something?" But that was so long ago.
I don't think anybody said, one of the girls, one of the producers, maybe, I can't remember who it was. Was it Richard's wife? Somebody said no. George said, "Come on, everybody get their cameo and do a zombie." Very few people said no.
Wait, Catherine said no? To be a zombie?
To be a zombie, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure Catherine was the one.
Yeah.
She said, Catherine certainly threw some of the parties, didn't she? I remember that.
Oh, that's
Oh,
right.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right, yeah.
She became a biker girl when in the Pine Scene. But she was also the set photographer, okay?
Yeah.
Now, there's one scene where when the bikers first arrive at the mall, there's a big explosion, okay? Now, Catherine was sitting on the floor, looking at a floor-to-window, maybe 30 feet high window inside the mall when the zombies were approaching, before the explosion happened. So the effects guys, Gary Zeller, set off the explosion, and it was too powerful, and the window just shattered and fell around her. It was like a perfect circle of glass around her. None of it touched her. And she became St. Catherine at that time. Because, it was like she had a force field or something that no glass hit her. And she's the producer's wife.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the biker gang, because when Marty Schiff was here a few years ago, he said the reason why himself and some of the rest of you were hired to play bikers is because the real bikers couldn't act. They could ride motorcycles, but they couldn't act. So can we talk about the biker gang? Were they a real gang?
Yes.
Were they
The pagans.
The pagans.
The pagans.
Tell me about the gang.
Well, I don't know much about them, except they were a real gang, the pagans. I don't know how they got them for the movie,
But Mike knows, because I've heard him tell the story. I just can't remember what it is. But Mike Gornick.
Oh.
Somebody had a connection who knew one of the pagans, and it was easier to hire them to come in and pretend to be a biker gang than it was to get a bunch of stunt guys riding around.
You know how exciting it was when they showed up and then drove motorcycles, loud Harley motorcycles through the mall,
And they were happy to do it because they were a gang. And of course, there's a scene where they're smashing up one of the stores. Imagine these guys are like, "Yeah, this is great."
We had keys to all it was our props that they smashed, but we had keys to all the stores all night.
So did you have to, or did George have to rein them in a little bit and say, "Look, guys, don't smash up too much"?
They were
Just let
amazingly
them go?
well behaved. You have a concept of what a biker gang was. They were all very polite and nothing was stolen, nothing was broken. They didn't want their bikes touched.
Yeah.
There wasn't very much interaction.
Well, Butchie was a really good-looking biker with a machine gun toward the end. He gets surrounded by the zombie. Yeah, that's Butchie.
He has a line. Actually, George gave him the line finally.
Yeah.
He's the guy that says to Tony Boober, "What
Get
the
out
hell are
of
you
the-
playing around for?"
Right.
Oh,
And someone's
yeah.
gonna
Takes
shoot
his
him.
arm and the blood.
Right. And Tony just walked over and started doing that, and George filmed it. But there's another guy, really heavy-set guy with a big beard, and he was a fine artist, so we got to know some of them pretty well,
But when you said it was, this is a dumb question, but when you said it was loud, how loud is loud when you've got 30 bikes? I mean, how loud was it?
It's 30 Harley Davidsons inside an echo
That
chamber.
big marble box.
Yes, yeah. The acoustics were wonderful.
And that was one of the scenes we stood there and watched, and George just had them go back and forth and rev their bikes as loud as possible. And I just did that for a couple of hours. And they shot me going up
I
and
don't
down.
know whose bike I drove through that window, the store window.
That was, I can't remember either.
Yeah.
Obviously, it was a stunt bike. It wasn't one of the bikes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was about to say, they wouldn't have taken kindly if you said, "Can I just smash your bike up, please?"
Can I drive your motorcycle through that store window? Yeah.
The guy that we first see with the bikers is Rudy Ritchie.
Yes.
And Rudy's not with us anymore. And I don't know a great deal about Rudy. what can you tell us about Rudy the actor?
All I know is there was a history of George and Rudy. Rudy had something to do with the financing or finding money or something. But George and Rudy went way back, as far as the relationship. I only met him there on the movie, with the Nazi helmet on. So I didn't know very much about him. But we did that scene together. Me and the switch cone. Should we, that's when I realized I'm the leader of the bike gang. Do we talk tonight or tomorrow? Well, he and I. And then he decided tonight, and that's what we did.
Could you both ride bikes? I'm assuming that you could.
Yeah,
you could.
absolutely.
So that's another part of the toolbox, isn't it? I mean, all of this stuff that you're being asked to do or volunteering to do, you've got this huge resume of skills, including riding bikes and
Riding
smashing through
well, I'll
walls.
tell you something about him riding a motorcycle. We used to meet in the park to fence. We were saber fencing, foil fencing. And I drove there on my motorcycle, and he came with his little Pinto. And he said, "Can I ride your bike?" "Yeah, go ahead." So he took off. A jogger comes by and says, "Hey man, your friend is laying up there. He I don't know what's wrong with him." And I figured she's joking. "Yeah, how long have you known Taso?" But no, she said he's out there. So I go up there with his Pinto, and the motorcycle's in a tree, and he's got a broken leg. Okay, he had a cast on his whole. You still have screws in your leg?
I have a whole knee.
Pictures, don't look. That's a very fine leg.
So he's lying there with a broken leg, and I pick him up and put him in his Pinto, and I want to take him to the hospital. He says, no. He wants to go back to his apartment and lie at the bottom of the steps and sue the landlord for falling down the steps and breaking his leg.
He was not a nice person.
The landlord.
Yeah.
But he had a huge hole in his leg, Yeah. Anyway,
Was this on Dawn of the Dead or before or after? Or?
I think it was after. Well, you didn't have a broken leg during the
Well, springtime, so it must have been after.
after Dawn of the Dead. Because you were in that cast for a long time.
Months, yeah.
Yeah.
Before I open it up to our friends, Taso, you've got a phenomenal death scene in the movie. And we've heard Tom talk about the use of real intestines.
Pig intestines.
But you also had a fake belly, which there's obviously
There's photographs of it on his table in there. Yeah.
So can you talk about the creation of the effect?
Did you make that for the movie?
No.
You had that. It's
I-
Tom's chest.
I just had
It
a.
glued onto me. We actually glued hair on that. I don't
Yeah.
have, but he does.
Yeah.
So we glued hair onto his fake rubber chest
I
that
just
I
had
was
a
wearing.
rubber chest, and I thought I should use this somehow. And I picked you to do it too.
Right.
I put this fake chest on him, but I filled it with pig intestines first.
It was glued. I took
Yeah.
weeks for this, whatever glue was, to come off.
Right.
But it was glued so solidly that
Yeah.
the liquid intestines wouldn't leak.
Yeah. But before he let the intestines touch him, he took them into the bathroom and washed them under hot water. So the blood inside there was fake blood because they were pristine when they went into the bag. He didn't want them to touch them.
Are you squeamish? Or just about
I
guts?
didn't think I was, but I just didn't.
It's pig intestines.
Yeah, actually, now that you said that, I think I'd be squeamish as well.
But don't they eat those? Aren't they chitterlings?
I had seen my mother washing the intestines in the sink, and that's what made me think about
I've
it.
never eat intestines.
You know how with a pencil through it and move the shit out of the intestines.
That's why I would never eat them.
There you go.
Because of what went through them.
People eat them. I mean, everyone
I know
can
they're
eat
called
everything.
They're called chitlings or something.
English sausages are made out of
They're the casings.
yeah, all of that. Yeah.
Boy.
You've never lived unless you've had an English sausage.
Mhm.
Questions from the floor. Anyone like to ask questions of our guests? Don't be shy. If not, I'll carry
Well,
on.
thanks for coming.
Okay, then. Can we talk about specific makeup? Can you tell us?
If you do have a question, just raise your hand,
And we'll come
no
to
matter
you.
who's talking, and we'll get to
We'll
it.
just come to you. How did you do Scott Reininger's zombie face?
As
That
he's
was-
dying, you mean the slow
When he
progression?
died, yeah, that's just called stretch and stipple. If we were doing it to you, somebody would hold pull your face tight. We would put latex on that area, powder it, and when you let go, it bunches
Wrinkles.
all the wrinkles. I did that all over his face. Did the same thing to David Emge, Flyboy, when he became a zombie. And his zombie performance is one of the best ones ever.
It's majestic. I mean, the thing about David Emge, because he's almost like a fresh zombie. You see the kill,
Yeah.
the bite in the neck, the bite in the leg, and then you see in fact, I don't think he's in costume anymore, but Scott Kellaway is often
He's not.
looking like that.
He's not. Yeah.
And that's the reality of the bite, isn't it? He's been bitten twice, he's bled out, he's died, and
Yeah,
something
he's a
develops.
zombie, yeah. But not every zombie became. It would have been too much work to make every zombie to give them that wrinkled look that we gave Scott and Flyboy. But they're the main characters, so they had to be special.
What about in the second sequence of the movie, the attack on the projects? And John Rice is here. We see John Rice attacked by Gary Peabody, and Gary was an amputee.
He had no foot yet.
Yeah, can you tell us about how you did him and how you used amputees in the movie?
We had a bunch of amputees, guys with no arms,
That's right, under
no
the
legs,
truck.
no feet. Yeah.
We had an amputee lay down under
Yeah.
one of the trucks that backed slowly over his sleeve. And so then George shot him, ripping his...
I think I asked for them to hire some amputees so we could take whatever's missing and look like it was freshly bitten off. You know, there were quite a few of those.
And people were happy to do it.
Yeah.
They were happy to get work, sure, just like anybody else. It
They got
was
paid.
rare for, say, we were actually hiring an amputee.
I don't know how much they got paid. We all got paper hats and jackets that said Dawn of the Dead on them. You know?
The Gary Peabody zombie in the projects has got a huge hole in his head, or a lump missing from his head, and then he's got a missing foot.
Yeah.
So, if a zombie was being given extra screen time, such as Scott or David Emge, you had to give them more detail.
Well, that's why I did that to their faces.
Yeah.
The stretchy stipple, you know.
There was a table, so the community room that we were in held 100 people who wanted to be zombies. And we had tables, a long line of tables with the lights and the mirrors and the makeup, and Tom was at the end, and Jeannie and me, and I remember there were several more of us, and they would just file in, and 90% of them got the gray makeup, and that was it.
Yeah.
And then the other 10% got some portion of detail, which was
We
a
brought
tray
people in
full
from
of
school. We brought Mullins. and
all our friends.
Yeah, and then they would do special, like the
Close
appliance
up,
makeup.
close up,
the
more
moves.
detail.
Yeah, and everybody else was gray. All the makeup was gray. They were never blue, they were never green. It's the light that made them look blue and green. But the makeup was pure cryolan,
Right.
gray water makeup, you know, and they all got that. And that was only because we wanted to make sure there was a difference between a real person. So you knew who a zombie was because they were gray, okay? David did, they were all different because that's more realistic, you know. But the head explosion, Galen Ross, we cast Galen Ross's head because there was the original ending was grisly. Ken shoots himself, Galen jumps up into the helicopter blades. We did shoot her body falling away from the helicopter, but that's the only thing that we shot of the other ending, the horrible ending, you know. So we had this cast of Galen, and I made it up like an African American, gave it an afro hairdo, and put it on the dummy, and that's the head that blows up. But it was originally going to be blown up by the guy, the Gary Zeller, the physical effects guy on the film, and the head just went boom. It never exploded. So I just took a shotgun and that's how the head exploded, with a double barrel shotgun.
What about in the basement of the projects? There's a real dead body in there, I believe, or a real skeleton.
A real skeleton. Yeah.
Real skeleton. Yeah. How did that happen?
You could get them from a catalog.
Yeah, Carolina Biological Supplies.
Right.
When the box arrived, it said a product of India.
E.T.
Real skeleton.
Perfect E.T.
Yeah. And I used that skeleton in Creepshow for when Raoul appears at the window. You know, the beginning of Creepshow, and flies
Got
away.
stopped by the cops one time because of that skeleton. You were stopped by the police,
Uh-huh.
and they wanted to know where the...
Well, I borrowed the skeleton from a costume shop. And it's a medical skeleton. Wires in the fingers, springs in the jaws. Clearly a medical skeleton. But I made it up like a cadaver, like a dead body with Rice Krispies and latex, you know. And I gave it back to the costume store. They put it in the window for Halloween in a coffin. And that's what happened. That's what the policeman came to rent a costume, and he said that's a dead body. They brought the county coroner in, and he couldn't tell the difference between Rice Krispies and latex or rotted flesh. So they closed the costume shop down. She had to bury this thing in the cemetery. It's in the Mount Lebanon Cemetery under a grave that says Betsy. And I told her, exhume this thing, put it in your store, and people will come from all over to see this prop, that the police coroner said is a real dead body.
Another zombie in the basement is known as Pancake Head, and it's as if his entire the top of his head has been removed.
And then we probably poured blood on them to look like
Pizza Head?
syrup.
Pizza Head.
Pizza Head.
Pizza Head. Yeah, do you remember
No,
that?
I don't remember that at all. So.
No, I can't call it Pancake Head, you don't.
Right.
Some of the zombies in the film had no damage at all. There's a very heavy-set guy who's wearing a suit, grey suit. The nun is undamaged. Was that Romero's choice, or was that your
I
choice?
don't know about the nun, but the guy in the suit, we said there should be somebody that looks like he's fresh.
Wasn't that the coffin, the suit guy? He was in the coffin, so when he turns around, he's naked, the suit's been cut away?
Oh no, that's my
Night
Night
of
of the Living Dead.
Ah.
I did that in my Night of the Living Dead. But I wanted somebody to look like they were fresh from a funeral home, with the Undertaker makeup on, and they would be in a suit. I took it a step further in my Night of the Living Dead and split the clothing up the back, because that's how they would dress a dead body back then,
And as he's walking, he's standing on the suit. And
You can see his ass and everything. In the
Yeah.
So if the nun had a heart attack, she wouldn't be damaged,
Yeah.
but she would still come back as a zombie.
What about the big fat guy that fell in the fountain?
In the fountain, right.
How did he die,
Right.
He was obviously swimming somewhere, because he's in a bathing suit.
I don't remember putting any wounds on him.
Yeah, right. But I mean, and even in Day of the Dead, there's a clown, there's a circus performer, they come from all walks of life, these zombies, however they die.
Absolutely, and I think, Joe, we're running out of time. Okay. I know George very much wanted to have those character zombies, didn't he, in Day of the Dead? You had character zombies as well in Dawn. You had the Hare Krishna.
Sure.
You had the sweater zombie, you had the nurse.
Well, that's the difference between the original Dawn of the Dead and the remake. You remember zombies from the original. The nun, the baseball player. I think in the remake, the only zombie I remember is the Jay Leno zombie.
The boiler room zombie.
The what?
The boiler room.
Oh,
The guy.
Warner
Yeah. He's very interesting because clearly this is all about backstory. Something's happened to him, he's been down there and suddenly he emerges. Given that he's quite in camera a lot, did you have to do anything special with him, with his face, with the makeup, to give him a look?
I don't remember. I just don't remember him at all.
Warner was friends with Christine, wasn't he?
Yeah. Well, she had a lot of friends from
Yeah, he won
when
with-
she worked at a restaurant in New York. And Warner was one of them. Scott Reiniger, David Emby, they worked with her at some restaurant.
Lady Astor's, is it?
Say what?
Lady Astor's?
Lady Astor's.
Oh, that was it? Okay, yeah.
Any
But
questions?
I don't remember making up Warner. Yeah.
I have a question for Tom. When you, the newer Dawn of the Dead with the cameo that you made along with Scott Reiniger,
Yeah.
were you asked to make a cameo, or
Yeah.
did you say, hey, I want to?
No, they called me, want to be in the movie. So, remake of Dawn of the Dead, yeah. And I think we went to Toronto and shot that in Canada. But Ken Foray is also in it, yeah.
He plays the evangelist, you play the sheriff,
Yeah.
and
She's a
Scott's the general. Yeah, she's a twitcher, that's what you're saying, yeah. But Galen's not in it.
No.
And
Well, no,
David,
she is.
Well, the storefront.
I don't think she knew about that.
Yeah.
I have to ask her about that.
But not
I
David.
think that was a big surprise, yeah. Somebody else had a question?
Yes.
Been like 24 years. Yeah. Was that what you wanted to know?
You mean other famous special effects
Yeah.
artists that call Tom and say
Yeah.
thank you for what you've done?
Oh, we do it all the time. It's a brotherhood. I'll call Rick Baker and say, man, how did you do blah, 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 blah? Or they'll call me, how did you do the zombie on the table with no head and a brain, but his arms are moving? They thought it was a dummy. It's a real guy. It's a real guy. His name was Barry Kress. He's dead now. But he was a friend of mine back then. And he was always, "Hey Tom, can I be in the movie? Can I be in the movie? Yeah, I got a part for you." And he was that poor guy with his head bent way back for 4 hours with the appliance that looked like his head is gone. Taso did the same thing. In Day of the Dead, his head was bent way back for hours with blood going up his nose to get his head torn off like that.
Didn't you work, was it Rick Baker or Rob Bottin that you worked with to do the animatronics for Fluffy in Creepshow?
Rob Bottin taught me how to do it over the phone. I called him and asked him, because I had never done an animatronic creature before. And he told me, it's 2 hours, he told me step by step. And then we went to the premiere of Night Riders, and Rob Bottin showed up, took me to his house, tore the skins off of the howling mechanical heads. You know, I never keep the skins anyway. And he showed me exactly how to do the mechanisms for Fluffy. So he had a lot to do with me knowing how to do that.
So what you were just saying then about Tom being an inspiration, you were inspired by Dick Smith. You have then inspired other people. So that lineage, that legacy is just ongoing, isn't it?
It goes way before that. Lon Chaney, Jack Pierce, you know. I recently got a Lifetime Achievement Award at Monster Palooza. And I thanked all of I started thanking makeup artists from Lon Chaney, Jack Pierce, all the way up to Greg Cannon, who was sitting in the audience, V. Neal, because they've all had something to do with why I did what I did. You know?
Taso, Tom's your friend, you've known him a long time, but can you separate your mate from the special effects genius that he is? I mean, do you look at him working sometimes and think, my God, this is just incredible, and he's my pal? You know,
No, I haven't. Right
Yeah.
yeah.
I'd like to hear this. The answer is yes.
No, I can't separate it. I can't separate it because it's always been there.
Yeah.
But I watched him do all of that. And what amazes me is that he just keeps doing it. I would walk into his shop in Pittsburgh, whatever new shop he had, and there is some sculpture that he's been working on for months. And I'd come back a couple of months later, and there is the same sculpture that he's still working on, putting details. Started with a plaster head of his dad,
Yeah.
and he made.
I turned that into
the
Frankenstein.
Frankenstein.
And
right.
the Mummy, the same sculpture, because once you make the mold, the sculpture is kind of intact. But the
I
same
wasn't a
level-
bad artist. I had some paintings, and when I went into his class, and I was really good, and he said, "Oh, you had a great one." And I painted the axe and the stuff, the
That's
tools.
right. All the
Friday
props.
the 13th.
All the props
Couldn't
inside
tell.
of the 13th, he
Painted.
painted them realistic.
But to sit there and watch him for months working on these detailed sculptures, I never had the patience for that. I never had the patience, and that's why he went and did all that stuff. And I just wanted to be an actor and maybe do some stunts. It was a lot easier.
But if you're a true artist, you're never done. You'll work on something forever. Every time you look at it, you're going to do something. Except in this business, there's a deadline, okay? And that's the difference. But a real artist is never done. He'll work on it, if he could, forever.
the first time you and I met, you were a guest at the HorrorCon festival in Sheffield.
I remember that, yeah.
8 years ago, when you did the Bullwhip thing. And I was asking you.
Was it you I did the bullwhip?
Yeah, when I was holding the piece of paper.
And I bullwhipped it out of your hand.
You certainly did.
Did I hurt you?
No, you never, you never touched me. It was
But
fantastic.
he wouldn't do the cigarette.
No. I value my nose too much, such as it is. But I asked you then about how you, kind of the roots of what you do. And you said when you were a kid. Do you still have that passion and energy and excitement from being a kid at the age that you are now?
That can't go away. It's the joy of creativity. What you do is you give life to something that never existed before. There's a great feeling behind that. Happiness is, by definition, in all ethnic groups, is a project that you will do from beginning and complete it to the end. That's a joy. That's the joy of creativity. Giving life to something. And I tell my students this all the time. You're giving life to something that never existed until you decided to make it exist. I have masks all over my house, and I do cameos for people. And I say, this all is here because somebody sat down in front of a blob of clay and made it exist, you know. And some of my students come in, some of them have never sculpted before. You put a blob of clay in front of them, and they're surprised at what comes out of them, you know. That's the joy of creativity. So that never goes away. Yeah. I still have it. You know.
When you look back on Dawn of the Dead and all of the stuff, question for both of you, all the stuff that you did and the crazy things that you did and the adventures that you had, is there one thing that stands out? Either something that you've created or part of the job that you were hired to do, Taso as well? Was it just fun, looking back 45 years to that movie?
Well, don't forget it was a job back then, you know, to make the stuff as realistic as possible. For me, you know, Jim Crut, the helicopter zombie gets applause in movie theaters. They're applauding somebody's head, you know, being torn off by helicopter blades. And then, you know, and going off, for me, it was going off the balcony into the fountain, you know, they're doing the stunts, getting hit by trucks. But it was Halloween every night, you know, it was just a joy to be there. It was so fun, so much fun.
That's when I thought, this is great, I can do this the rest of my life if I'm having all this fun and getting paid.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a movie and never goes away. People just can keep watching.
It's there forever.
It's there forever. We're young, having fun forever.
If you retain that energy and passion as well, which you have. When did you see the completed movie for the first time, and what was your reaction?
I have no idea.
Taso?
Yeah,
No, I
I think it was in New York.
And it was at the Rivoli Theater.
That's right.
The Rivoli Theater in New York were all smoking joints. You could smoke in movie theaters back then, you know. They would lock the doors, we'd light up, you know, and
Up in the balcony, you were allowed to smoke.
and that was great fun. Hearing and seeing the reaction of the people right after the first bite in the neck. Then they're like, oh shit,
Screaming.
now what's going to happen? Because if you're starting off a movie with that, you know, what else can happen? And so that was a great joy listening to their reaction.
There was nothing like that back then.
Yeah.
All of the violent and sci-fi and horror movies back then, they always would cut away before the gunshot or the
Yeah.
stab wound. You would see it in shadow. Hitchcock, you know, has it behind the shower curtain, and then you see the blood. You never actually see the stabbing. He builds up the fear in different ways. And George was like, I really want to see the stab.
Yeah.
I want to see the knife going in. I want to see the gunshot and what happens. I want to see the whole thing. And people were shocked at that. They were ready for the cutaway.
Yeah.
And when the bite happens and the skin pulls and the screaming.
Oh, the whole cast and crew went nuts when they saw that.
Yeah.
Is that what this movie's going to be like? Because that was the first effect we did in the film. And it may sound odd coming from me, but I think it is better to not see it. You complete it in your mind, and you turn it into all kind of things that we would never physically make, you know. But you couldn't do that back then. And ever since then, you're disappointed if you don't see, even big budget movies have horrible gore in them, you know. Big budget, famous movies, they feel like they're going to disappoint the audience if they don't show them some kind of bloody thing happening. In horror movies, you know.
When you were, very quickly, so I think we're finishing. When you were inventing this stuff on the spot, when you were talking to George, I have an idea, we can do this, we can do that. Were you aware that this was groundbreaking, or were you just working day to day to get the stuff done?
Well, no, we thought, yeah, this is going to be special. You know, no one, like he said, no one's seen stuff like this before, you know. So we were aware when we were creating it that that was going to be the reaction.
And final question. The one effect that I've never been able to figure out how you did is in the cabin of the truck when Roger's been attacked by the blonde zombie, and then the other zombie breaks the window with a tire iron, and he shoots him 3 times with a pistol.
Yeah.
How did you manage to do 3 bullet holes at the same time?
Well, it's just 3 blobs of blood that we put a sewing button on and attached fish line to the button, and then covered those with mortician's wax. So all I did was pull, and the hole would appear because I'm pulling a button, and it was
There was a piece of soft wax.
Right.
It leaves a perfectly round hole.
So we did that all the time. We did it so many times in that movie. Well, Jeannie's face, when Jeannie is attacking Scott, and Ken shoots, and her face blows off, that's just a section of foam rubber face that I pulled off with fish line. If you ever do it, you got to pull the fish line toward the camera so it's invisible. You know, and all you're seeing is a hole appear, or in Jeannie's case, half her face goes missing, you know.
And she said she couldn't see.
She couldn't see, she
It was
couldn't
glued
breathe.
onto her face.
Yeah, and I was pumping blood into it, so she was kind of drowning in there as well.
We have to leave it there.
Okay.
But if you come back, maybe we can do a masterclass and do it again. Ladies and gentlemen, Taso and Tom.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.